Lynnette Widder advises our next group that's been working with the City of Cape May Mayor's Office. Melinda.
Good evening. My name is Melinda Schenk, and for my day job, I work as an environmental engineer in stormwater infrastructure for the City of New York. And tonight, I'll be presenting on behalf of my team for our project for the City of Cape May to develop flood-resilient infrastructure for its historic buildings. Cape May has been a beloved seaside destination for over a century. It is located at the southernmost point of the New Jersey shore, and it stands apart from other coastal towns due to its iconic Victorian architecture. From its fisheries to its thriving summer economy, water is a huge part of what makes Cape May, Cape May. However, water also poses one of the city's biggest risks. In the interest of time, I prepared a concise agenda for tonight, but I'll be happy to take any questions at the end. Cape May has a very unique hydrologic and topographic landscape. It is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the south and east, the Delaware Bay to the west, and the Cape May Canal to the north, creating a man-made barrier island. As you move in from the shore, the city is also home to a complex marsh structure. As you can imagine, this lends way for the city to see a variety of flood risks. Cape May sees flood risks in three primary ways. Not only coastal flooding from sea level rise, but also storm surge and sunny day flooding. These three risks can also compound to make overall flood risk greater for the city. The evidence is clear. This year alone, 83.2% of properties in Cape May will be at risk of flooding, and in the next 30 years, without mitigation, nearly 95% of all Cape May properties will be at risk. This is the equivalent of all of Manhattan being at flood risk, aside from Central Park. To begin to address these risks, we met with a variety of Cape May stakeholders to address project goals. We learned that starting in August 2022, the Army Corps of Engineers developed a plan for an updated and expanded seawall. However, from our research, we found that flooding expanded far beyond what this seawall would manage. This meant that we needed to propose not only large-scale infrastructure solutions, but also small, homeowner-level solutions in order to preserve Cape May's historic homes, preserve the city's streetscape, and stay true to its overall historic value. In doing this, we created an entire new framework for the City of Cape May officials to consider. Our work this semester was divided into three primary workflows. First, we looked at just how much Cape May's overall historic value was truly worth. In other words, how much more was Cape May valued at because of its historic properties? We then looked at how much of this value was at risk and how much the city could benefit by investing in flood infrastructure solutions. From there, we were able to develop a comprehensive list of both green and gray infrastructure solutions for the city to consider. We evaluated each by flood type, potential location, and other risks. Finally, we zoomed in on the issue on a house-by-house basis. We looked at what individual homeowners could realistically propose on their own for flood mitigation and how to prepare the community at large for flood risk ahead. There are several constraints and limitations that limit what is possible for Cape May. Currently, the city has a preliminary flood risk map, some standard elevation and topographic surveys, as well as some qualitative anecdotal insights on where and when flooding occurs. However, the city lacks any kind of overall historical flood data, any kind of current active flood monitoring insights. There is no existing flood map showing all three of the flood types I mentioned earlier, and there's still not a lot of clarity on the subsurface and subsoil conditions of the city. Taking into account these constraints, we knew that it was our goal to develop a framework and a menu of solutions as a foundation for action after data insights were gathered. This is an image showing Cape May's historic streetscape. It was showed to us by the head of the Historical Society on our trip to Cape May back in October. It was painted by her late mother, Alice Steer Wilson. She shared with us her time in Cape May as a child and just how much the city meant to her. We knew in this moment that Cape May was so much more than just another case study, more than a data point, but something deeply personal to those who live there, and soon our team as well. We knew that it was our job to balance Cape May's historic value with the resiliency it would need to survive. Our valuation process was based on the overall square footage of Cape May and a multiplier to count for the added historical value and key assets such as infrastructure. From there, we looked at how much of this value was at risk and how much the city could benefit by investing in flood infrastructure. This created a baseline that the city can continue to adapt and develop as more data is gathered. We use standard flood risk methodology for this model, and we confirmed our methodology with industry experts. We then created a 30-year projection sensitivity analysis. The result was a practical tool, including a depth damage assessment, to aid the city in determining overall avoided risk through flood mitigation. We estimated between $7.5 and nearly $41 million in saved economic value from implementing flood mitigation solutions. From there, we were able to make a list of both nature-based and gray infrastructure solutions for the city to consider. We started by looking at Cape May's existing topography and hydrology, as well as the city's historic status, as a foundation for every solution that we proposed. We evaluated for a variety of solutions this semester, including added additional and improved pump stations, elevated roadways, floodable green spaces, porous pavement, seawalls and levees, marsh restoration, and improved flood monitoring. One example of a large-scale solution that we considered was porous pavement. This is a good example of how constraints shape what is possible for Cape May. In other cities, porous pavement can be used as a direct infiltration practice, meaning that water can flow directly from the pavement to the underlying soils. However, Cape May has a high groundwater table, which limits the feasibility of this practice. We were able to determine another way for Cape May to still see reduced runoff, lower peak discharge, lower pollutants, and have less stress on local ecosystems without relying on infiltration alone through the use of an underdrain in this practice. Although this is just one solution of the many that we considered for Cape May, for every single large-scale solution, we looked at Cape May's hydrology, geology, policy constraints, the maintenance and cost of each practice, and the fit within Cape May's overall infrastructure strategy. This is an example showing how our CBA and our infrastructure analysis can fit together. As I mentioned earlier, Cape May doesn't have an existing flood model to show all three kinds of flooding, so this is based on assumptions. We modeled for a 7-foot storm affecting 100 homes, valued at about $880K each. The damage that we found was about a 70% loss for 2 storms over 30 years. This is about $616K per home per storm, accounting for about $100 million in overall lost value from this storm model. However, once we implement something such as porous pavement, we see a reduction in flood from 7 feet to 3 feet, which is about $264K per home as a loss, only 30% instead of 70%. We evaluated the same thing, 2 storms, over 30 years, and saw only a $70 million overall loss as opposed to the $100 million loss. This is also still including the $5 million CapEx and the $1 million for O&M, showing a strong net present value for investing in flood infrastructure. This is an image showing Cape May's historic streetscapes. These homes rely not only on large-scale solutions, but also small individual homeowner solutions to maintain their historical integrity while balancing flood resiliency. One example of a small-scale solution that we considered was a bioswale. Bioswales act like sponges, soaking up and slowing down water before they can hit historic homes such as the ones in Cape May. One potential location that we considered for this practice was along Cape May Avenue, because this road has a long median that is not currently used for any stormwater or flood mitigation practices. For every single small-scale solution that we considered, we looked at scalability, fit, and the context of Cape May's overall flood management. For example, this solution can also be scaled down to an individual homeowner size using a rain garden. Before I wrap it up, I want to highlight some key future next steps to provide a coordinated approach for targeting flood solutions for Cape May. First, camera-based monitoring. This will allow Cape May to have more real-time data showing where flooding occurs and when. This will help the city in identifying hotspots and infrastructure gaps. From there, data insights can be gathered. This data collection will show when conditions reach critical level to enable timely action during storms and inform long-term planning. From there, the framework that we created can be used to determine what solutions to implement and in what order. This will clarify priority locations and the most effective interventions for overall flood mitigation. This is a picture of our team on our trip to Cape May back in October. On this trip, we learned that Cape May was looking for more than just one solution, but a menu of solutions to be able to present to engineers, city planners, and a variety of other external and internal stakeholders. With the framework we've created, the city is now better equipped to manage flooding and take steps towards real resiliency. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to my team in the city of Cape May. I'm pleased to take any questions at this time.
Thank you for your presentation and thoughtfulness. I just have a quick question. If all of your recommendations are adopted, does that help to solve for the 80+% that are already at risk, or is it only accounting for that delta going up over the next 30 years?
I was thinking I was going to need that microphone. That does help with the existing 80% because right now Cape May is still in the process of forming a lot of their flood mitigation strategies. They have a smaller seawall, but the 80% is still at risk with that seawall, so any kind of future mitigation would help beyond the delta.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So I am curious about your methodology for determining that porous pavement reduced flooding by 4 feet. In a storm surge, was that storm surge or was that assumed a rainfall event?
You're saying storm surge like coastal flooding versus
Yeah,
rainfall? That was for a rainfall event, I believe.
okay, thank you. So, sorry, I'm not done. So you're assuming a 7 feet of rainfall flooding? I think maybe if you could just talk us through your assumptions on that slide.
Sure, yeah. So as I said, Cape May doesn't have existing flood models, so all of this data is preliminary, and it's basically just to show you all an example of how the practice would work. Like, these numbers aren't set in stone, which is kind of why I talked about the data insights that we need. But this value, all of our numbers here are based on the Army Corps engineer study that we already had, as well as some other like preliminary data that we did on flood modeling, but none of it is confirmed for Cape May specifically.
That was a great presentation. As you mentioned in your presentation that there is no data regarding the flood models and other externalities. Could you explain more about the approach that you use in terms of evaluating and assessing the project in your CBA?
Yeah, sure. So our CBA was based on different flood levels. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up so you can see it. Our CBA here is based on the overall infrastructure spend and the different flood depths, because even though we don't have a model to show like where flooding would be and where we would put these solutions, we can still estimate the depth and get a pretty like accurate analysis on how our CBA would work.